Welcome everyone, as we learn the venerable learning of Chok Yisrael for Parshas Teruma, Yom Shlishi, day 3. V'tzipisa isa zahav tahar, you should coat the aron with pure gold, mi bayis umichutz, inside and outside, titzapenu, you should cover it. V'asisa alav, and you should make upon it zer zahav, a golden crown, saviv, going round about. V'sachafei yasei dahav dechei, migei v'mibara tachpinei, v'saved aloye der dahav skar skar. So now Rashi tells us we should know that the aron actually was 3 boxes, a big one. Inside that was the middle one, and inside that was a smaller one. The outer box and the inner box were made out of gold, and the middle box was made out of wood. The idea is that when you see it gold, it should be toichai kibaroi. The inside should be like the outside. We're told that, that our inside should be out as our outside. We shouldn't be a phony. However, it needed to have also wood because gold is dead. And wood is a living thing that produces fruit. So therefore it had to have both. So Rashi tells us, Mibayis u'mechutz tetzapenu, shloisha aronais asa B'tzalel. B'tzalel, the builder of the Mishkan, made actually 3 boxes. Shnayim shel zav, 2 of gold, ve'echad shel eitz, and 1 of wood. Arba ksalim, each box had 4 walls, was rectangular, vishulayim, and a bottom. L'kol echad, each one was 4 sides and a bottom. Upsuchim milmala, and all three boxes were open on top. Nosan shel eitz b'seich shel zav, they put the wooden one into the exterior golden one, and then v'shel zav b'seich shel eitz, and the inner golden one into the wooden one. V'chifa svasay el yoyne b'zav, they covered the upper edge all with gold, and therefore nimsa mitzupa mebayis mechutz, therefore it's covered on the inside and on the outside with gold. And they made around the top zer zav. Now you have to know that on top of the aron, sitting on the aron, was a kapyrus, a cover. Now the outer box rose higher than the other 2 boxes, and in order that when they put the cover on the 2 inner boxes, it would match with the higher, it would absorb the width of the kapyrus and be even with the ark cover, and the outer one would raise a little bit higher, which would be the crown. Kamin keser mukuf lasav l'mala misvasai, there was like a crown surrounding round about above the edge. She'asa aron hachitzain, they made the outer box gevaya min apnimi, higher than the inner one, at she'ala lemul uve hakapyrus, and it rose to match the width of the ark cover. Ulamale menamasher, and a little bit higher than that, where they had the crown. Ukishakapyrus sheikhev al uve aksalim, when the ark cover rested on the thickness of the walls of the inner boxes, oyla hazer lamala, the crown rose above it, mikol uve akapyrus, above the thickness of the ark cover, kolshu, a little bit, and this crown was similar to Keser Torah. It's a sign of the crown of Torah. We know there are 3 crowns, Keser Kuna, Keser Malchus, and Keser Torah. This is a sign of the Keser Torah. V'yitzaktaloi, and you should pour or cast arba taboizav, 4 rings of gold, v'nosata al arba pamoisav, and put it on the 4 corners of the aron, Ushtei tabois al tzala echas, 2 rings on one side. Ushtei tabois al tzala ashenis, and 2 rings on the other side. V'satich le arba iskan dedah, v'sitein al arba ziv yosei, v'sartein iskan al sitrei chad, v'sartein iskan al sitrei tinyona. Rashi tells us, v'yitzakta loshen hatocha. It means to cast, kitargumai, like Onkelos interprets it. Pamoisav, kitargumai, like it's interpreted, zav yosei, its corners. Ubezovius al yainis, in the upper corners, some kapiris, near the ark cover, hayunasunin shtayim mekan, 2 on one side and 2 on the other side. Now they're on the narrow side of the rectangle. They're not on the longer side of the rectangle, but they're sticking out from the corners of the narrow side, the width of the rectangle. Shtayim mekan, 2 on one side and 2 on the other. L'rach b'shel aron, going along the width of the aron. V'abadim nesunim behem, and the poles were put in the rings. V'orka shel aron, and the full length of the aron, which is 2.5 amas, mafsik bein abadim, are interposed between the 2 sets of poles. Amasayim v'chetzi, you have 2.5 amas bein bad labad, between one pole and another pole. Sheyu b'nei adam, shtein b'nei adam, hanoisim es aron, mahalchim b'neim, that the 2 people that carry the aron walked in between them. V'chein mefurish b'menachas b'perek shtei alechem. U'shtei tabois al tzalo ya'achas. Now, Rashi says, since it says, v'nasat al arba, you should make arba tabazav and put it on the 4 corners, it really could have said shtei tabois without the vav. Shtei tabois al tzalo ya'achas, and shtei tabois al tzalo hashenis. So the first vav is extra. So Rashi says, Ushtei tabois al tzalo echas, hein arba tabois sheb'tchil samikra. These are the 4 rings mentioned in the beginning of the pasuk. Mupirish lach heichon hayu, and it tells us where they are. And therefore, says Rashi, you could have just said shtei tabois, 2 of them are on one side and 2 on the other. V'havav zu yiseri, and the first vav therefore is extra. However, if you want to explain it, excuse me, and you should read it, 2 rings on one side, 2 rings on the other. And the vav there is for a drasha. However, you could explain according to Pashut Pshat why it has the vav. It says there's 4 rings, and it says, and 2 of these, and that's what it means. And 2 of these, al tzalo achas, are on one side, and 2 of them are on the other side. Tzaloi, tzidoi, side. And you should make poles of acacia wood, v'tzipai some zav, and coat them with gold, v'saved ariche da'oi shitin, v'sachve yasoin dava. Rashi says, Badei amoitais are poles, b'tabois ha'aron, and in the rings of the aron yu abadim, the poles should remain. Lo yasurim mimenu, they should never be removed. Lo yasurim mimenu l'olam. And all the Mefarshim say that the Badei Aron represent the Marzikei HaTorah, those that support the Torah, those that give money to yeshivas and to rebbeim and to kolelim, and that they the supporters of Torah also are never removed from the Kodesh Kodashim. In Malachim, it tells us about the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and in Mirz Hashem, in the Schus that we learn of the building by Shlomo, the Beis HaMikdash, we should be zeichet to see the Beis HaMikdash Shabnuya b'mheira v'yameinu. Vayas laboyis, they made for the temple chalone, interesting windows, shkufim that were wide on the outside and atumim, narrow on the inside. Now, normally, you want the window to be wide on the inside so that you can get the full amount of light. But here in the Beis HaMikdash, the windows were wide on the outside, but narrow on the inside. Rashi says to show that Hashem Yisbarach doesn't need light. Hashem doesn't need light. Vayiven al kira bayis, and they built alongside the wall of the house, on the three sides, Yotzia Saviv, wings, chambers, on all three sides, on the north, the south, and in the back in the Marav. Actually, there were 38 chambers. There were three levels. On the north and the south, there were 5 on the first level, another 5, and another 5. So that's 30 chambers. In the back, in the Marav, there were 3, 3, and 2. So that's a total of 38 chambers. So again, Yetzia, Vayivan al Kiram Bayis, and they built alongside the wall of the house, Yetzia Saviv, or wing roundabout, as Kiras Abayis, alongside the wall of the house, Saviv, roundabout, Lahechel Valadvir, going along the length of the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim, Vayas Sloi Saviv, and they made these chambers roundabout. Now, Hayetzia HaTachtoina, the lower level, was, now, as we said, the chambers were 3 stories. However, what happened over here, I'm going to explain to you outside, what happened over here is they didn't want to make any holes in the wall of the Beis Hamikdash. First of all, they didn't want to undermine the wall. And second of all, if you remember, they didn't use any metal equipment. Everything was cut miraculously by the quarry with the shamir creature. So once they brought it to the Beis Hamikdash, they didn't use any tools. So rather what they did is that the wall, the outer wall of the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim, they indented. So the first level was 5 amas. Then they indented the wall of the Beis Hamikdash an amma, and the second level was 6 amas. So 1 amma went into the indentation that held it up. And then they indented it another amma, and the third amma was wide 7 amas, so that the floor again sat on the indentation of an amma. Let's see it inside. Hayetzia HaTachtoina, the lower level, 5 ba'ama rachba, was wide 5 amas. Vatichaina, the middle story, was 6 ba'ama rachba, was 6 amas wide, so that 1 amma of the floor sat in the indentation against the wall. Vashlishis, and the third level was 7 ba'ama rachba. Ki migras nasan labayis. They indented the walls of the temple, saviv, around about, chutz on the outside, so that they shouldn't have to bang and make any holes in the wall. Levilti achos bekiras habayis, so that they shouldn't have to do any, take hold and make any holes in the walls of the house. The pasuk tells us why. Because remember, v'habayis, the temple, b'banasa, when it was built, even shleima masa nivna. It was built with whole stones quarried from the mountain. Umakavos and hammers, v'agarzon and saws, and kol klei barzel, or any other metal utensils, was not heard in the house when it was built. So they couldn't make any holes in the wall. Now, another interesting thing, there was only an outer door to the bottom level of these chambers. There were no doors on the second and the third level. Rather, there were spiral staircases inside to get from the first level to the second level, and to get from the second level to the third level. So says the pasuk, Pesach Hatzela Atichayna, the middle, remember there were 5 chambers, so on the southern side, the middle chamber on the first floor had a door. Pesach Hatzela Tichoina El Kosef Abayis Yamanis, the door of the middle chamber, that means there were 5 chambers on the bottom, so the door of the third chamber, there was a door on the right side, on the south, on the right side, in order, El Kosev Abayis Yamanis, on the right flank, that's the southern side, to get into the first level. And then there were doors to go on either side to the other chambers on the ground floor. Ubelulim, and with spiral staircases, Yalal Tichayna, you went to the second level, Umenatichayna, and from the second level, that's the middle level, El Ashlishim, until the third level. So we got a little of the architecture of the To'im, the 38 chambers that were surrounded the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kedoshim from 3 sides. Now we go to Mishlei. Ateres Zekanim B'nei Banim. A crown of the elderly are God-fearing grandchildren. Oh, that's a crown, right? Urevanim Levanecha Shalom al Yisrael. The crown of the elderly is God-fearing grandchildren. The Tiferes Banim, and it's a splendor for children, avoisam, when they have fathers that they could emulate and model their behavior after. Loi novel lenovel svas yeser. It's not becoming for a fool words of arrogance. The fool really has nothing to be arrogant about. So it's not becoming for a fool words of arrogance. That's the way Rashi learns. And some learn simply it's not becoming for a fool to speak extra, because a fool is better off keeping silent, because when he speaks extra, people realize that he's a fool. Af kilan, says Gemara, af kilan nodiv, and surely for a generous person, it is ill-becoming sfas sheker, to say words that are not truthful. Even chen, it's like a precious gem that charms people. Hashoichad, that's a bribe. And Rashi says this is a metaphor. If we do tshuva, tshuva is a bribe that we give to the Rabbeinu Shalom, be'enei ba'alav. So it's an even chen. It's like a charming stone. It pleases Hashem, and it's a bribe before the Rabbeinu Shalom when we do tshuva and repent. El kol asher yifneh, if we do so, whichever way we turn, yaskil, we will prosper. The next pasuk is such a lesson for life. Mechase pesha, if somebody wrongs you, but you hide the transgression. You don't harp on it, you don't bring it up, but you make it as if it's not there. Mevakesh ava. That's a person who wants to promote love and goodwill. But v'shayna b'davar, but the one who constantly brings it up and harps on it and doesn't let it go. So he's over loisitar, bearing a grudge. And if he takes action, he's over loisikaim. Not only is he not pursuing peace, but mafrid aluf, he separates himself from the Rabbeinu Shalom. The Rabbeinu Shalom does not like that behavior. How important this is for marriage. A spouse does something not nice, so if you're always going to bring it up, then not only is it nursing a grudge, but it chases away the shechina from the home. But if a person hides it and makes as if it's not there, then he's seeking love in his home. Teichas ge'ara b'meven, deeper is the rebuke, a simple rebuke to an understanding person, mehakois ksil meya, than hitting a fool 100 times. You could hit a fool 100 times and he doesn't get the message. But an understanding person, just telling him once that this is not correct behavior, penetrates more deeply. And now we learn, it's interesting, we just learned this in the Mishnah Yomis, so it's a review. Eilu narish yesh lahem knas, the following maidens from 12 years and 1 day to 12 and a half years and 1 day are assumed to be virgins. And therefore, if somebody seduces or rapes them, they have to pay the knas of 50 shkolim. And now, even though it says that a rapist has to marry her, v'lo yisiya leisha, so I might think if she's not, he's not allowed to marry her, maybe he doesn't have to pay the knas. It's not true. If he sleeps with a mamzeris or a ger givaini or a kusis, now it's interesting, the Rav over here learns that this is going according to the man Yamad kusis geri aroyis, that they're not sincere converts. So he's not allowed to marry her, but still he has to pay a knas. The question, however, is that if she's not a Jew, then why does he have to pay the knas? So the Rishonim talk about that. If he rapes or seduces a convert or a captive or a shifcha kananis, that was redeemed, converted, or emancipated, less than 3 years old, so that even though when they were a goya or a convert or a shifcha or a captive, even though they were molested, but since they converted or emancipated or rescued before they were 3, the virginity grows back, so therefore you would have to pay. Or if one sleeps with his sister, with his father's sister, his mother's sister, his wife's sister, the wife of his brother, the wife of his father's brother, even though there's an Issachar, but it's not a capital case, there's no Mises Bezdin, and when there's no Mises Bezdin, we don't say Kam Lebruder Abamine, that it wipes out the monetary payment, and therefore Yesh Lahem Knas. Why? In these last cases, Afal Pishain Bikaris, even though there's spiritual debt for Achis Ishtai, etc., Ein Ba Mises Bezdin, there's no capital punishment, there's no execution, and therefore you have to pay the Knas. However, Ve'elu She'ein Lahem Knas, if he rapes or seduces a girl that was taken into captivity or was a guy or a shifcha kananis and was redeemed, converted, or rescued, redeemed, converted, or emancipated after 3 years old, so by then the virginity doesn't grow back, so therefore, he doesn't have to pay the knas. Rabbi Yehuda says, Shvuya sheniptes, a captive that's redeemed, harihi b'kedushasa, we could assume that she's in her purity, because she'll make herself disheveled so that her captor won't want to touch her. However, we don't pass like Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds afal pisha gedayla, even if she's an adult, we still maintain that she has her virginity. Habal bita, if one sleeps with his daughter, now these are capital crimes. So habal bita, if one sleeps with his daughter, albas bita with his daughter's daughter, albas benai with his son's daughter, albas ishtai with his stepdaughter, albas benai with his stepson's daughter, or albas bita his stepdaughter's daughter. These are all sins punishable by death in Bezdin. Then ein lahem knas, there's no knas, mipnei shemischayeh bo nafshay, because he forfeits his life. Shem yisasa b'dei Bezdin, he's put to death by the court. V'kol mischayeh bo nafshay, whoever it forfeits his life, ein mishalim mammon, he doesn't pay a payment. Shenemar, this is talking about where two people fight and they hit a pregnant woman and she miscarries, so we say, if he doesn't kill the man, then then he has to pay for the miscarriage. But if he killed the man, since he gets executed, he doesn't pay. If she was engaged and divorced. Now, in the parsha of rape, it says, Asher lo orasa, that was not engaged. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi says, if she was engaged and divorced, Rabbi Yossi Aglili Armein lo knas. Rabbi Kiva says, no, when it says Asher lo orasa, that means if she's not engaged, the knas goes to the father. If she's engaged, then the knas goes to her. Rabbi Kiva Armein yesh lo knas, there is a penalty, o knas ala atzma. Hamafata, when one seduces a girl, nice in shloisha dvarim, he has to pay for three things. We'll see. He has to pay for her humiliation, for her devaluation, that now she's not a virgin, and he has to pay the knas of 50 shkalim. The einus, the rapist, since he also hurts her, because he forces her, arba. And now the Mishnah explains in detail. Hamafata, when he seduces her, noisin, boishis, upagam, uknas. He gives the humiliation, the devaluation, and the knas of 50 shkal. Ma'asav olav einus, we add the case of a rapist, shenoisin esatzar. He pays for the pain. Ma bein einus l'mafata. What's the difference between rape and seduction? Einus noisin esatzar. By rape, where she's forced, is pain. He has to pay pain. But mafata, seduction, ain't a noisin esatzar. Einus noisin miyad. The rapist gives immediately, because even if he marries her, which he has to, with their consent, he still pays the 50 shkal. The mafata l'kishayotze. The mafata, this means, as the Gemara will explain, by seduction he only has to pay it if he decides not to marry her. But if he marries her, he doesn't pay the knas. The rapist has to drink from his pot. That means he has to marry her even if she's ugly, even if she's lame or blind. V'amafata, the seducer, if he wants to send her away, he can send her away. Now, so what does it mean that he has to drink from his pot? Even if she's lame, even if she's blind, even if she's covered with boils, or the Rav says she's a mitzaraz. However, if she commits adultery, or if she's a mamzeres or a nesina, like we explained, then ain't a rasha l'kaim, and then he can't marry her, and if he marries her, he has to send her away. Shenema v'loi siya leisha. It doesn't say v'loi leisha, but v'loi siya leisha. Isha ru'yula. You can only marry her if she's fit for him. Yesayma shenis arsav niskarsha. A orphan girl that doesn't have a father, or if she was engaged and got divorced, Rabbi Lazar says, Hamafata, if it was consensual, so then potter, then he doesn't have to pay, because if there would be a father, he has to pay the father, but now that there's no father, he doesn't have to pay. The einus, a rapist, chayiv, he has to pay, and the knas goes to her. Ezoi baishis, how do we calculate humiliation? All is according to the status of the one who did the embarrassing and the one that is embarrassed. Of course, the one that is embarrassed, it depends. If it's not a chosh of a person, the embarrassment will be less. If it's a chosh of a person, the embarrassment will be more. Hamavayish, the status of the embarrasser, there's machloikis. Some say that the embarrassment of a middle-level person is the most embarrassment. Rashi says the embarrassment of a low-level person is the greatest embarrassment. Pigam, what's the embarrassment? What's the payment of pigam? That's royin oisak ilu hishifka nimkeres. We view her as if she's a slave in the slave market. Kama yafa, how much was she worth when she was a virgin? The kama yafa, how much she's worth now, and he pays the difference. Knas, the penalty shava b'chol adam, is equal by everybody. V'kol sheyesh lo kitzra min hatayra, whatever has a fixed amount, like the 30 for killing an Eved Kanani, a shor killing an Eved Kanani, or the 50 for Knas and Mafuta, or the 100 for Motzi Shemra, for maligning a girl, is equal by all people. Kol Mokum Sheyesh Mecher, whenever she's at the age where she can be sold as an Amavriya, which is until she's 12 years old and 1 day, Ein Knas, there's no penalty, because the penalty is only by a Nara. V'kol Mokum Sheyesh Knas, and when there's a Knas from 12 years old and 1 day to 12 and a half in 1 day, Ein Mecher, there's no sale, because she can't be sold anymore after she's 12 years old and 1 day. And the Mishnah voices this outright. Ketana, a minor, yesh la knas, there's a penalty, the ein la mecher, there's no sale. I skipped. Ketana, a minor, yesh la mecher, she could be sold. The ein la knas, there's no penalty yet. Nara, if she's already 12 years old in 1 day, yesh la knas, there's a penalty. The ein la mecher, there's no sale. Habageres, when she's 12 years old, 12 and a half in 1 day, then ein la loy mecher, she can't be sold anymore, v'loy knas, and there's no penalty either. And finally, the last Mishnah, we just learned this in the daf about moide b'knas pater. Ha'omer pitisi as bitay shel pliny, if he admits that he seduced the daughter of so-and-so, so the mamoina, that which is monetary, he has to pay. Mishalim boishis ubgam al piatzma, he pays the embarrassment and the devaluation by his own confession, but ve'ena mishalim knas, he doesn't pay the penalty of 50 shkalim because moed b'knas is pater. Ha'omer ganafti v'tavachti yamacharti, if he says I stole and then I slaughtered or sold it, Mishalim is a keren al piatzma, he pays the principal, but ve'ena mishalim tashlumei kefil v'tashlumei arba v'chamisha. He doesn't pay the double portion, and if it's a seh, he doesn't pay 4 times as much if he sold it or slaughtered it, and if it's an ox, he doesn't pay 5 times as much. Now, Hamish Shari as plainly, if his Sharamuid killed a man, where he has to pay kaifer, which is a monetary payment, or his Shari shall plainly, or his Sharamuid kills a shor, he has to pay a nezik shalom, which is mamaina. He pays, even though it's a confession, because it's monetary. But Hamish shori avdai shall plaini. But if he confesses that his ox killed an Eved Kanani, where it's a knas of 30 shkolim, then ain't a mishalom al piatzma. He doesn't pay by his own admission. Now, how do we know if something is a knas? This is a principle. Where you have to pay more than what you damage. Let's say it's an Eved Kanani who's worth only a penny, and you have to pay 30 shkalim, so you have to pay more than you did damage. There, that's a knas, and ain't a mishalim al piatzman, and you don't pay by your own admission. The Gemara amends it to say that whoever pays more or less than its value is a knas. Now, we start the Gemara from Ksuvas Daf Lamates. The rapist pays immediately. Hamafata l'kishiyotzi, the seducer when he divorces her. So the Gemara says, but it doesn't say that he married her yet. L'kishiyotzi, ishtayi, is she automatically his wife? Amar Abaya, ema l'kishalo yichnais. If he chooses not to marry her when he seduces her, then he has to pay the knas. Tanya nami ochi. We learned likewise. Afal pisha amra mafata noisein l'kishalo yichnais. Even though we say that the seducer has to pay the knas if he doesn't marry her, but boishis abgam noisem miyad, the humiliation and devaluation, he gives immediately whether he marries her or not. The echad ha'oines ve'echad ha'mafata, whether he rapes her, whether he seduces her, either the father or her could stop a marriage from taking place. Bein hi ubein avia yichel la'akev. Both she and the father could stop the marriage. So the Gemara says, Bishleim mafuta, in the case of seduction, ksiv, it says, imayin yemayin avia, if the father refuses. Now, Ainli alavia, I don't know the father, he atzma minayin. How do we know she could refuse? Talmud loyme yemayin, it says a double lashon, imayin yemayin. That means he or her, mikol makom, either way. Ela oinus, the rapist, how do we know that they both could stop him from marrying her? Bishleim ihi, we understand that she could stop him. ksiv v'loy siya leisha. It doesn't say v'loy leisha. It says siya, that she has to be mahava, that she has to be willing to go along with it. Medata. Elavia minala. How do you know that the father could stop it? He shouldn't profit because he sinned. If he seduced her, the father could stop it, but if he rapes her, the father can't stop it. He shouldn't profit because he sinned. Rav Amar kal v'chomer. It's a kal v'chomer. Oma mefata. Madach is seducer. Shaloi over el al das aviyah. He only went against the will of the father. Bein he bein aviyah chalach. Both she and the father could stop it. Einus, that he went also against her will. Shavar al das aviyah al das atzma. Like Kol Shechein, surely both could stop it. Rava Loyamar Kabaya. Rava doesn't explain like Kabaya that it's in order that he shouldn't be a Chayte Nisker, because Kevin to come Shalom Knas, since he has to pay 50 shkolim, he's not considered profiting. Lav Chayte Nisker. Abaya Loyamar Karava. Why? Because Mefata, the seducer, the Iru Matzi Ma'akev, he could say no, so maybe Aviyanami Matzimak. Or maybe over there, the father could say no. But the rapist, the Iulai Matzimak, he can't say no, like we said, he has to be Shois about Tzitzai, maybe Aviyanami Lai Matzimak. So therefore, we need the Psukim. Tani Idach, we learned in another Braisa, Afal Pisha Amru Einis Noisin Miyad, even though we said the rapist has to give the class right away, when he divorces her, ain't law love klum. 50 shkalim is 200 zuz. So when he divorces her, he doesn't have to give her a ksuva. Says, well, what do you mean when he divorces her? Kishi yaitzi? Mi matzi mapakluk? Can he divorce her? It says in the pasuk, lo yuchal l'shalcha kol yamav, that he can't send her away. Ema kishetetze he, if she wants out, ain't law love klum. She can't claim a ksuva, because he already gave the 50 shkolim in the beginning. Mace, if he died, then Yotza Kesef Knasa, her Knas, the 50 shkolim is Biksuvasa, is instead in lieu of the Ksuva. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says she's still entitled to a Ksuva of 100. Yeshla Ksuva Mana, because she wasn't a virgin, but she's entitled to a Ksuva of Mana. But my Kamifligi, what are they arguing? Rabbanan Savir, Rabbanan hold, you know why she doesn't get a ksuva? Because time might take in Rabbanan ksuva. Why did Rabbanan make a marriage settlement? Kedei shaloi take kalabain of loitzia, that it shouldn't be easy for him to send her away. So it inhibits him from sending her away. But here, you don't need the inhibition because he's not allowed to send her away. It says, lo yuchal l'shalcha koyama, v'aloi matzi mapikla. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Hanami Mitzarle, he'll give her so much grief and aggravation until she says, I want out. So in order to stop him from doing this, we instituted a ksuva of 100. And now we learn the Zohar. This Zohar asks a very interesting question. You know, after Pesukei de Zimrei, which is the Shiros of David HaMelech, we say Az Yashir. Az Yashir are psukim from the Torah. They're Doraisa. So the question is, shouldn't we say Az Yashir first, and then the Shiros of David? Why do we say the Shiros of David, which is only Tilim, before Az Yashir, which is the Torah? So, let's see what the Zohar has to say about this. Bahu Zimna, at the time, the Mesaime Yisrael Shvache, when Klal Yisrael finishes the praises, the Inon Tushbachan de David, those are the praises of David, Kidain, at that time, Tushbachta de Shirasa de Yama. At that time, they then begin to say, Az Yashir, the song of the sea, Kamad Kimna, as we know. The Tema asks the Zohar, Hai Tushbachta, this song of Az Yashir, Amai Ihi Tikuna, why is it ordered Batraisa, second, Basar Shafche de David, after the praises of David? For Torah Shebiksav, the Chumash, Akdimas l'Torah Sheba'al Peh, comes before the oral law, the Akdimas l'Neviim, and comes before the Navi, the Akdimas l'Ksuvim, or Kamod Akdimas, and just like it's in order of Tanakh, Torah, Neviim, and Ksuvim is first, Haki Itzrich L'Akdama, we should say Az Yasher, before we say Ashrei and the Halalukas. Ella, Migay de Knesset Yisrael, or here Knesset Yisrael is a code for the Shechina and for the Bechina of Malchus, Hashem's kingship. Ella Migay de Knesset Yisrael loy istatnas. The Knesset Yisrael is not benefited only from the written law. Mishum hachi itzrich leimerla b'sheirusa de tiknuha. Therefore, we have to say it as we prepare to be mesaken the Shechina, because we'll see Birchas Kriyashma is a tikkun, is a benefit for the Shechina Kedosha. V'hai tushbachta ma'alya, and this praise of Oz Yasher is ma'alya, is more superior mikol shar tushbachon alma, from the other praises. V'i'ulay is takonas mikulu, and the Shechina does not get a benefit from all the other ones. Kemodi is takonas mitushbachta da, like it gets the benefit from Az Yasher. Or begin da, because of this, it is said right next to the prayer that we say when we sit, in other words, Birchas Kriyashma, Kamadu Kimna, as we've explained. Ba'ashaita, at the time, Kadshi Rasa Diyama Itma. Now we're going to see we know that when we say praises, although we can't see it, we cause things to happen above. Ba'ashaita, at the time, Kad Shirosa Diyamar Itmar, when we say the song of the sea, Az Yasher, Misatra Knesset Yisrael, the Shechina is crowned, Bahu Kisra, with the crown, the Zamin Kutcha Barichu, that Hashem has prepared, La'atra Lamalka Mashiach, to crown the head of the Melech HaMashiach. Va'u Kisra, and this crown is Gelipa Muchakaka, is carved and etched and adorned with Bishma and Kadishin, with the holy names of Hashem. And Kama, this Ater Kutchabarichu, as Hashem was crowned, Hahu Yuma de Abra Yisrael Yasyama, on the day that Klal Yisrael crossed the Yamsuf. The Atba L'chol Mashirian the Paroi Ufarashoi, when he drowned all of the cavalry of Paro and his horsemen. And Hashem puts it on again, Kaviyachel, when we say it, Az Yasha. Begin da, and therefore, since this creates such consequences above, begin da boy barnosh, therefore a person has to l'shava or re'usei, to give all of his thought and desire and feeling and meaning b'hai shirasa. The kol man d'zaki le b'hai alma, and whoever merits to do this in this world, zaki l'meichame l'malka mashiach, he will merit to see the Melech Mashiach b'tikune ha'u kisra, wearing this crown, uvachagiru designer, and fully girded in all of his weaponry. This means, of course, that if we don't live to see it, we should live to see it, then we will see it by Trias HaMesim. V'zochei l'shabcha hai shirasa tamon, and we will merit to say this praise there. And we've already established these things. By the way, if you look in the Mishnah Brura says that when saying Az Yasher, every morning we should say it b'simcha, and think about how Klal Yisrael was saved and saw finally their enemies drowned, their tormentors, the drowners of their babies, the ones that slaughtered their babies to cure Paro's leprosy, 150 in the morning, 150 in the night, and they see them finally drowned. So they had tremendous simcha. The Mishnah says that if we do it with a feeling of simcha, it brings mechilas avainis. It brings forgiveness of sin. Now, after Az Yashir, we say the bracha of Yishtabach. Kevin the Mati Barnosh, the Yishtabach, when a person reaches Yishtabach, Natal Kutchabarichu al Kisra, Kutchabarichu takes this crown, Vishavale Kameh, and puts it before him, Uknesis Yisrael Shrias. Now, Knesset Yisrael, there's Kutchabarichu Ushchinte. So the Knesset Yisrael is the Shechina HaKadoshah, the Knesset Yisrael Shrias is Takana L'meisi Kaimei Malkila, prepares to get ready to be miyachet, to be one with Kutchabarichu. And you have to draw to her the Yud Gimel Midah Shel Rachman, the 13 attributes of mercy, the Minhoin Isparkas, that the Shechina is blessed with. And V'inon Tleiser Busmin Ilan, and these are represented by the 13 perfumes, elevated perfumes, Kamadat Omar, like it says in Shir Hashirim, Nerd, V'charkam, Kana, V'kinaman. These are all different types of perfume. The kinaman is a cinnamon, the Kana is cassia, the karkam is saffron, etc. V'hacha, and here in Yishtabach, these 13 are hinted to in the 13 praises that we say to Hashem. Shira Shavach, but first we have 12. Shira Shavach, Alav, Zimra, Izim, Mshal, Netzach, Gdula, Gvura, Tila, V'Seferes, Kedusha, Hot Tracer, that's 12. Olabasa, and afterwards we say, Umalchus, L'chaberla Bahadayu, to connect it to the Shechina HaKadoshah, V'leimer Malchus, because the Shechina HaKadoshah is the Bechina of Malchus, V'hava Tleiser, and that's 13. Begin to misbarach minayu. She is blessed with these 13 ways. But aldo itzrach, and therefore it's necessary. B'shaita de iskalilas beinayu, when the Shechina is being benefited from these 13 that represents the 13 midas arachmim, l'shava aliba uruusa bahai, to direct the heart and one's desire about this. And not to interrupt chas v'shalom with words in between, not to talk in between. Not to talk during the Yishtabach. The ipasik beinav, if somebody talks during Yishtabach, it's a terrible thing. Then mitchais gatfei kruvaya, then from underneath the wings of the kruvim, the celestial angels, nafik chad shal hoiva, shoots out a flame, v'kari b'chela v'amar, and it calls out with strength and says, planya so-and-so, the pasuk to Usa the Kutchabarichu, who interrupted the glory of Hashem, Yishtetze, should be destroyed, v'yispasak, should stop. The lo yechame geusa the malka kadisha, he shouldn't see the glory of Hashem. Kamadat Amar, uval yira, it says about Esav, uval yira geas Hashem, he won't see the grandeur of Hashem. Begin the ilan tleiser inon, these 13 levels, Shir, Shavach, Al, Zimra, Izam, Mishal, Netzach, Gvura, Tila, Feres, Kedusha, Malchus, Inon Geas Hashem, they're the glory of Hashem. Mikanu Lahala, afterwards in Yishtabach, we say Kela Idois, Da Malki Ilah, this refers to the great king, the Shlama Kola Delay. This is the king who's called Melech Sha'ashalom Shaloi, the king who peace belongs to him. Begin the Kol Hani Shvachim, all of these praises, Inun L'Gabod the Knesset Yisrael, it's to the Shechina Akdosha, Kad Mishtapcha B'Mesher Yusa D'Lisata, when it is praised by the retinue of Jews below. Kama Da'at Amar, Shir Ashirim Asher L'Shloima, a song of songs which is directed to Shloima, Lamalka, to the king, the Shloma Delay, who peace is in his hand. Now, Mitamanu Lahala, after we finish Yishtabach, we say, of course, the bracha of Yotzer Ar Vari Chayshech, Oiser Shalom Vari Esakol, Va Is Arnabei, and we've already, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says, we've already alerted to the fact, Vis Aru Chavraya, and the holy colleagues have alerted the Inon Tikunin the Alma Ilah, that on Shabbos, when we say the praise of Keladain and the Yotzer of Shabbos, that represents the elevated level of the Bechina of Bina, which is the Olam Elyain, and during the week, it represents the Midah of Malchus. Now we learn the Musar, getting back down to earth. We were talking about how great is humility. Now, Afal Pisha Yirak Sivba, even though when it talks about fear of God, and Ramiller always translated Yira as to see God, meaning awareness of Hashem. It says, Hein Yiras Hashem Hi Chachma, to be aware of Hashem and to think about what He wants from us, and if we're pleasing Him at all time, Hi Chachma, that's wisdom. Uksiv Yiras Hashem Hi Oitzarai, awareness of Hashem is the Oitzer of the Rabbeinu Shalom. Still, humility is even more. Amar Rabbi Seinu Zichronu Levracha, Ki Okevi, even Yira is only a heel el hanava when compared to humility. K'ma'ishe Kosem, Ekev hanava, humility is a heel to Yiras Hashem. Ekev hanava Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem is a heel to hanava. That's how great humility is. Somebody whose mind is humble, Kilu hikriv kol hakarbanos. It's as if he offered all offerings. Shenema zivchei elikim. It's like you sacrifice to Hashem ruach nishpara, a broken spirit. V'lo yoid, and not only that, ela she'ein tfilasay nimeses. A person that's humble, his tefillah is never repulsive to Hashem. Ve'ein tfilasay shel adam nishmas. And a person's prayer is only heard. He makes himself like a mere flesh. He doesn't make himself special. Shenemar, midei chaydish b'chacho, every month. Yavai kol basa, one who makes himself like mere flesh. L'shtachvos, to bow down to Hashem. Uksiv, ve'alzeh abit, to this I will look. El ani, to one who is poor, unechei ruach, and broken of spirit. The kol mishu anav, whoever is humble, gairim lahashrish shchina al ha'adam baretz. He causes the shchina to devolve upon earth. Shenemar Moshe nigash el ha'arafel. He entered into the swirl where there was Hashem. Mi garim loizeh. Where did he get to enter to the presence of the shchina? An v'senusa, his humility. Shenemar v'ish Moshe anamayid. He was the greatest anav of all people. The Tana, Reb Pinchas ben Yair Amar, Reb Pinchas ben Yair says, and Mesil's Yesharim is built on this, Zehiras, if one is careful, Mevir l'idei zrizis, that brings to alacrity. Or zrizis mevir l'idei nikis, alacrity comes to being clean from sin. Unikiyas, and clean from sin, mevil l'day tar, brings to purity. V'tara mevil l'day precious. And purity brings from separation from this world. O precious l'day kedusha, and precious from the excesses of this world brings to holiness. O kedusha l'day anava, holiness brings to humility. V'anava gedoyla mekulan, shemivil l'day ruach hakodesh. It brings to the divine spirit. Shenamar, it says about Yeshaya, that Yeshaya said, Ruach Hashem alikim alai, the Spirit of God devolved upon me, Yan Moshech Hashem oisi levaser anovim, because Hashem anointed me to give news to the humble. So we see that the Spirit came to him because he was involved with the humble. And finally, we learn from Hilchas Kriyishma, if somebody was in the middle of saying Kriyishma, upaga ba'acherim, and he meets other people. He's stationary, but other people come to him. If he's between chapters, then Paisik Umasku, he stops and he initiates V'shayel Shloim and greets a person who Mishu Chaya B'kvayde, somebody that he has to show honor to. Kigayin Shepaga Ba'aviv, he meets his father or mother, or rabbi or his rebbe, or Mishu Gadol Mimena B'chachma, or somebody that's greater than him in wisdom. However, if someone else initiates greeting to him, or Meishiv Shalom L'Kol Adam Shenas Shalom, he could answer in between the chapters, anyone, to be a mensch, anyone who offers him greeting. If he's in middle, that's more serious. He doesn't initiate. Somebody that he's afraid of. It's a sakana. Melech, like a king, or anas, or a bandit, but somebody who is chayiv in his honor, aviv a rabbi, his father is rebbe. If they initiate, then Paisik, then he could interrupt in the middle of a parasha, or Meishiv Leishalom. Now, what are the breaks? What is considered in between? Between first, in between Yaitzer HaMa'iris and Ava Rabbah, between Abaycha B'Ama Yisrael, B'Ava and Shema, between Shema Levahaya, between Uchsafta Ma'amuzuz B'Yisachu V'Sharecha and Vahaya, Im Shemaya, between Vahaya and Shemaya, in other words, the end of Leman Yerbu and Vayomer. Between Aprakam Ha'elu, in between Shayel Mipnei HaKavod, he could initiate to his father, to his rebbe, to somebody that's Gadol Mimena B'Chachma, or Meishiv Shalom L'Kol Adam, an answer to anybody. Aval Bein Vayomer Le'emes, but between Hashem Elokeichem and Emes, V'yatzev, Harizeh Ke'emtza Perek, that's like in the middle. You're not supposed to interrupt between Hashem Elokeichem and Emes. V'lo Yafsik, you shouldn't interrupt, except if it's a danger. El Lishol Mibnei Hayira, only to initiate in case it's a danger, and to answer to a father Rebbe or somebody that's greater in Chachma. Well, Rabbi say, another Chok in the books. We want to thank you for joining us and wish you a wonderful day.